Hi, Carol.
Yeah,
Good to see you.
you too.
Hello, everyone coming on. We're a little bit early here, so we're going to give it a few more minutes. We have Kelsey joining us too. Hi, Kelsey.
Hello.
Welcome. Welcome to our Ask Me Anything event. We're all a little bit early here, but we'll wait as people jump in here the last few minutes. So I'm going to go on mute so you can't hear me while I grab a cup of tea. Welcome everyone who's popping on. We'll start right at the bottom of the hour. For those who don't know, I'm a bit of a tea addict, so I always have a cup of tea in front of me. And I bought this new cup. We just moved cross country, and I got this cup along the way. Nope, not today.
That is amazing.
And it's giant because I love my giant teacups. But good. People are popping on more here. What we're going to be doing here is I'm going to give a 15-minute presentation on gut health, and then we're going to go ahead and open the floor. You guys will all see that there's a chat. There's right now on your right-hand side of your screen on mobile, it may be on the bottom. There's a little chat button. I think it has a red dot there. And so go ahead and you can just type in there while you're waiting. Hi, give us your name, where you're from. Sorry, Ingrid, your camera is down, but this is where you're going to chat. And if you have any questions, go ahead and put them here. And then Carol and Kelsey and I will filter through them and we'll ask them as we go, and we'll kind of delegate who's the expert on what and who's going to answer what. So can everybody hear me okay? Any feedback, anything like that? Okay, good. Good. So we have Molly. Good morning, Molly. Welcome. And Judy. And your significant other is having short-term memory problems. So we have a lot of information around that. But today we're going to be really focusing on the gut health portion. So we certainly can help you in many, many other areas. We have Debbie. And yes, Ingrid, you guys will not be on camera. It's just going to be Kelsey and Carol and I on camera today. You guys can just chat. Go ahead and put some stuff in the chat, MJ. That's really funny. I do a 6 a.m. workout, and my partner this morning was MJ. So welcome, MJ. Good morning. And well, good morning from Long Island. Good morning to you from the East Coast, and Linda from Michigan. Welcome, everybody. So we're just going to give it one more minute here, and then we'll go ahead and get started. From Buffalo, New York, Judy, great to have you here. And yes, we'll get to finding out how to tell about your microbiome and how it's when and how it's out of whack. Oh, we lost Kelsey here for a minute. Here she comes back in.
It's there.
So that was okay, wonderful. Well, people are going to be trickling in. Again, just to give everybody expectations, what we're going to be doing this morning is I'm going to be giving about a 15-minute presentation on gut health, how to know if you have good gut health. And then from there, we're going to open the floor after about 15 minutes and let you guys just ask us anything you want. So if you have a question, there's a little chat thing, there's a little red dot next to it. Go ahead and click on that and put your questions in the chat. So Judy just asked a great one. Can you help memory loss by eating? And the absolute answer is yes. So we will go through that. We're going to get into a lot of nutrition today. I will say this. A lot of people have very, very specific health issues. And so if you have specific health issues, we're happy to answer in a very general way, but we want to keep this a little bit more general so that everybody can benefit from it. And so we are definitely here to answer your questions. But if you have more very, very specific questions, clicking on a link, I'll put this up here, and you can click on a link to book a call with one of our memory assessors, and they will kind of figure out where you're at with your memory and your brain health, and then figure out where to go from there. So first of all, welcome everybody. And I want to go ahead and introduce Kelsey, who is our head coach of our Memory Guru program. And Kelsey has been with me for years and years now, and she's a certified memory and cognition health coach, very, very well versed on everything that has to do with glucose. When we have clients that come into our Memory Guru program, we will put everybody to start on a glucose monitor, because it's not just what you eat and how you eat and when you eat, but it's also stress and your sleep, and everything can affect your glucose, and your glucose long-term can give you dementia. And that's what we're here to do, is to help stave off dementia. So if you have any questions about glucose or how that affects you, Kelsey is our glucose specialist, and it definitely affects your gut as well, inflammatory. So welcome, Kelsey. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. And then next we have Carol. Carol is a functional health coach, and also a Bredesen certified coach, Dr. Dale Bredesen certified coach, and also one of our certified memory and cognition health coaches here at Simple Smart Science. These wonderful ladies, as well as quite a few others, are here to help you guys. So we do have lots of programs where we help people really get to optimal brain health. I mean, the main idea is to help stave off dementia and Alzheimer's in the future. And that starts today, because the symptoms of dementia and Alzheimer's show up decades after the damage is done. So we want to get you to optimal brain health today. And we've helped hundreds and hundreds of people through our Memory Guru programs and giving them optimal brain health, very much one-on-one programs. You'd be working with some of these wonderful ladies and their knowledge base. So if that's of any interest to you, please go ahead and click that, talk to a memory assessor, and book a call. But let's jump right in. So I'm going to go into a little bit of a presentation here, and just very general presentation for you around gut health. So let me start this up and make sure everybody can see it. Everybody in there? Everybody can see it? Yeah? We good? Okay. So this is our Ask Me Anything, Better Gut, Better Brain. So we're going to be talking all about gut health today and how it affects your memory, how it affects your brain health. So the first thing is, we're always talking about our 10 pillars of brain health. And these are things, going back to Judy's question, can diet affect your memory? Of course. So nutrition is our number one on our 10 pillars of brain health, and it absolutely affects your gut as well. So for our 10 pillars of brain health, we have nutrition and exercise and sleep, stress reduction, very important for your memory and your cognition, your brain health, meditation, breath work, supplementation, and being social. That is spelled wrong. Supplementation. There we go. Live. What are you going to do? Social, and use it or lose it, and learning. So those are 10 pillars of brain health. Today, we're focusing on your gut, because there's an axiom that I'll go into, the brain gut axiom. So Judy asked, or somebody else asked, how do you know if you have a healthy gut? So really what we want to do is we want to look for individual symptoms. And what we find is that people that have indigestion after a meal, you just really don't feel very good, probably means, and I'm talking not just, if you have a really bad unhealthy meal, like you have a giant cheeseburger and French fries and everything, most people feel really bad after that. But if you have just a really, in general, after every meal, you have heartburn or bloating, or you pain, or you just don't feel well, you probably have some gut issues. Also, there are some people that are so used to having maybe acid reflux or bloating after they eat, they may think they have a healthy gut, but they really, really don't. So these are all symptoms of an unhealthy gut. Also, we're going to be talking about poop today, but how often you have a bowel movement, right? So that is your first indication on what's going on inside of your gut. So if you're only going to the bathroom, having a bowel movement twice a week, this is not the sign of a healthy gut. So we really want you to be having a bowel movement once a day, if not twice. And then we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide, but we want them to be regular, and we want them to be pretty consistent the same time of day. Outside of that, a lot of people just accept, okay, so I only go poop once a week. Well, that really isn't normal. So we want to address that today and dive into it. Okay. So let's talk about poop. Everybody's favorite subject. So of course, if you were to go to a functional doctor or any doctor around your gut health, they're going to be talking to you about your bowel movements and your poop. It's really impossible to avoid this subject. So what we want to do is we want to look for some, like I said, frequency, consistency of your stool is really, really important. We want to, you can always see whether it's too hard or whether it's too loose. It can be indications that your gut is either absorbing nutrients ineffectively, or maybe your balance of fiber and water is off. You really want a well-formed stool should be really soft, and not really soft, should be soft, not diarrhea. It should be soft and easy to pass without making too much of a mess. And we don't want it too hard. We don't want it too loose. Obviously, we don't want diarrhea. So we just want that regular, consistent bowel movement. And that tells us that our gut is pretty healthy, and our gut microbiome, which we're going to talk about in a minute here. So we want to make sure that the waste is being eliminated efficiently. All right. And again, if you have questions as I'm going here, that little chat box with a red dot, put your questions in there. We're going to go ahead and sort through them, and I'll moderate and answer the questions. And Kelsey and Carol here, two of my certified memory and health coaches, are going to help us answer all these questions about health. And Carol specifically is very much an expert in gut health. So we're very excited to have her with us today. So ask those questions as we go along as well. So when we really talk about gut health, we know that it's, our body is a very, very complex organism. And so your digestive system, which starts in your mouth, by the way, it doesn't just start in your gut, it starts in your mouth, goes all the way down your esophagus, goes into your stomach, your small intestine, your large intestine, your colon, and finally gets eliminated. So these all parts play a very, very vital role in your whole body. So in fact, Hippocrates said that the father of modern medicine, he's the father of modern medicine, apologize. He said all disease begins in the gut, and that was nearly 2,500 years ago. So while we look more deeply into gut health, we're going to look at how we have a link to our brain health. So I do want to go ahead and dive into what that looks like in that connection. And I'm moving my hands too much to get my hair in the way. All right, so let's talk about your gut microbiome. So your microbiome, this is the bacteria that you have in your gut. Okay, it's not just your bacteria, it's a group of microorganisms, and they're all over your human body. As a matter of fact, you have more bacteria, microorganisms in your body than you have cells in your body. So if you think about that, it's kind of weird to think about. We're actually more other organisms than we are human. So what we want to look at is your gut microbiome. So the organisms that live inside your gut. It has trillions and trillions of bacteria and viruses and fungi, and they all play a very, very critical role to your gut health. A lot of times we think about we want to eliminate them. Actually, we have a very symbiotic relationship with all of these microorganisms in our gut. And most of them, they're primarily in our large intestine, and they're there to help break down our food so that we can absorb the food and vitamins and nutrients better. They do that for us. So we're very grateful to have them there. So our gut microbiome also produces neurotransmitters. And typically when we think about neurotransmitters, we're thinking about our brain and the chemicals that pass in our brain. As it turns out, our gut also produces neurotransmitters like serotonin. and dopamine, the happy, motivational, give us joy chemicals in our body. Also produces GABA, which helps us fall asleep. These all play a really big role in your mood and your anxiety, stress. So if you're feeling, first of all, if you're having a hard time falling asleep, if you're having a hard time with stress, your mood is off, if you have a lot of anxiety. So all of these neurotransmitters in your gut can actually make it so you are moody, right? You have anxiety. It may not just be a mental disorder or anything going on chemically in your brain. It may be coming from your gut. That's how important this is. So we want to make sure that we're not getting too much or too little of these neurotransmitters, which can really have a significant impact on your cognition and your memory. Okay. So when we talk about the second brain, right? A lot of people refer to your gut as the second brain, and that's because it does actually have neurons in it. When we think neurons and neurotransmitters, we think the brain. Your gut has brain neurons in it. It has brain cells in it. Okay. So this network of neurons in your gut is known as the enteric nervous system. So that is what we call your second brain. It has a complex network of neurons that can actually function independently of the brain in your head. Okay, it is its own brain down there. So this, we call it the enteric nervous system, the ENS. It's responsible for controlling your digestion. It's also responsible for controlling other functions in your gastrointestinal tract. And it's connected to your vagus nerve, which is kind of right here at the back of your head. And that connects it to your central nervous system. And this allows the communication between your brain and your gut. We call that your gut-brain axis. It's very, very important. Okay, so the ENS contains around 30 different neurotransmitters. So it can actually think and remember on its own without your brain, without any input from the brain. So what I really want to talk about is when it comes to your gut microbiome and it comes to healing your gut, we want to make sure we have a diverse microbiome. And what they're discovering is it's actually multi-generational now. And so if you have a very low diverse microbiome, typically you're going to have a lot of health problems, whether that's in your gut or otherwise. And so there are ways to diversify your microbiome. And I can actually get rid of this slide now. There are ways to diversify your microbiome. What they're finding is that you can do it through diet, but what they're finding works better. If you already have a diverse microbiome, to keep it healthy and get it even more diverse, diet is an excellent way. Eating a lot, we say, mainly plants with some protein, animal protein. We do believe in animal protein, very, very good quality animal protein. But when it comes to if you already have a gut biome that isn't very diverse, a scientific study that just recently came out said that you really need to eat fermented food. That is what it is going to give you a more diverse gut biome. So your kombuchas, your sauerkraut, real sauerkraut, that's been fermented, not just cabbage with some vinegar on it. You have your kimchi, things like that are going to give you a more diverse biome. They're not something that you just want to start piling into your system right away. They also have probiotics in them. You want to kind of gradually include them in your diet, but they did prove that people can get a more diverse gut biome by eating fermented foods, more so than just diet alone. All right. So let's start diving into your questions. Judy before asked about, can eating and your nutrition affect your memory? And so I'm going to go ahead and turn this one over to Kelsey, our glucose specialist, and she can talk about how eating and nutrition and glucose specifically does affect your memory and cognition.
So, when it comes down to nutrition for our brain health and trying to stave off Alzheimer's or any form of cognitive decline, what we're really focusing on is kind of multifaceted. We want to focus first on providing your brain with the nutrients that it needs. We also want to focus on reducing foods that cause inflammation to the gut or to the body in general, because when there's inflammation in one spot in your body, there's inflammation in your brain likely. It's really hard to localize inflammation because the byproducts of it, they go into your bloodstream and your blood travels all over your body. And so we've got feeding the brain, we've got inflammation, and then we've got glucose as well. And they can all be tied together for the most part. But what we really focus on as far as nutrition for the brain is feeding it high amounts of omega-3 fatty acids with a plant-based focused diet. Just focusing on a high omega-3 fatty acid diet, high in plant-based foods such as dark leafy greens, nuts, berries, and seeds, and lean animal-based products. That is going to feed your brain the best.
Can everybody hear me? I know people are saying there's only two of us, and I don't know if I'm one of the two. Okay. If anyone in chat can't hear me, let me know. So the most general test for inflammation is called C-reactive protein. That is an easy blood test that any doctor can run. It shows if you have generalized inflammation somewhere in your body. What it doesn't show is where that inflammation is coming from. So when your C-reactive protein is elevated, then we've got to try and figure out from your story, your symptoms, where that inflammation might be coming from. And it can come from lots of different places. The gut happens to be the most common place that people develop chronic inflammation, and that can happen for multiple different reasons in the gut. So there's different types of tests you can have on your gut. You can have inflammation because of cardiovascular disease. Those are different tests. You can have inflammation because of a change in your oral microbiome. So any kind of gingivitis, periodontitis, oral herpes, anything that's happening in your mouth can also cause chronic inflammation. And that's really close to your brain. So that's a connection that we should really pay attention to. Inflammation in the mouth, that's close to your brain. So overall, you'd start with C-reactive protein, and then from there, you'd start to look for the cause.
What a lot of people don't realize, and this is no fault of their own, it's just not super common knowledge yet, but it's starting to become more common, is that our blood sugar levels directly impact how our mood and energy levels are during, before, and after a meal. And so what we want to focus on is making sure that we stabilize our energy levels while we're eating. And what that means is when you're having a really high glucose spike from a carb-rich food or low fiber or protein or fat even, when you're coming up really high, your body has to find a way to come back down, and that takes a lot of energy to do so. And so you're going to feel that crash, that sugar crash. A lot of times, people associate, the post-Turkey Day crash as a relation with tryptophan, one of the amino acids in turkey that causes you to sleep. And while there is some accuracy to that, so what we really want to do is we want to, in order to prevent that energy crash after we are eating, we want to follow a specific order that we are eating to stabilize our glucose levels. And what that looks like is we're eating our fiber first, and then our protein and fat second, and we're saving our carbohydrates for last. And if you try that out for a few days, without even changing the foods that you're eating necessarily, you should notice that your energy levels stabilize after your meal.
So first of all, you should never be taking any medication that you don't need. So I would go with the doctor that's thinking about what are your symptoms, what are you struggling with, and approaching that, not somebody who's just giving you medication and you don't even have the problem to begin with. So in functional medicine, we kind of approach problems differently, like cholesterol, like cognitive decline, brain fog, um, body pains, autoimmunity, gut problems, by instead of supplying a medication that kind of puts a band-aid on your symptom, we try and look for the root cause. What is driving your cholesterol to go up? What is driving you to have gut issues? What is driving you to have brain fog and memory loss? Because fixing the underlying reasons ends up giving you a much longer, healthier life than providing medications on top of your symptoms that aren't addressing why you're having the symptoms in the first place. And then if those symptoms create side effects like cognitive decline, memory loss, things like that, which there are associations with statins in that regard, then you're putting a Band-Aid on the symptom. You're not you're not fixing the underlying problem, and you're creating another problem on top of that. So dairy in general is an inflammatory food. So in the Memory Guru coaching program, we recommend people try and eliminate dairy as much as possible. If you're going to have dairy, then there's kind of the hierarchy of the good, the bad, and the ugly. So inorganic milk, cheese, dairy from cows is the most inflammatory, most contaminated with environmental toxins because of the ways the cows are red, the food that they're fed. They are not in the sun, so they get no vitamin D. A little bit better than that is organic cows. A little bit better than that is A2 cows, which is an ancient strain that has a less inflammatory protein. Better than that is dairy from sheep and goat because they're smaller animals, so their protein structure is smaller, so they're a little bit easier for humans to digest. And then better than that is the non-dairy sources like almond dairy, coconut milk dairy, those types of things. Go ahead, Kelsey. Anything else?
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely echo everything that you just said. Some people are more sensitive to it than others. It really does also come down to genetics too. You know, we have to look at geographically, there are some areas where, you know, we have evolved to have more of a diverse microbiome and the enzymes to break down dairy products so it's not as inflammatory. But for the most part, most of us do not tolerate the amount of dairy that we take in. There's some conflicting studies on that, but for the most part, there is all agreement that limiting dairy is really the way to go. And if you do have dairy, like Carol said, really keeping with sheep's milk, goat's milk, or A2 dairy, because it's so much more than just the lactose in the milk. It's the quality of the animal that it came from. And we don't want to be part of the chain of getting
the chain of getting. So somebody asked, is raw cow milk better? And it really depends, again, what Carol said, on the cow, right? If you get an organic, when I talk about eating meat, they're redoing a lot of the studies from the 80s and 90s. And what they're finding is it wasn't the meat that was causing people so many issues. It was the pesticides of the food that the cows were eating. It was the hormones they were giving the foods, the antibiotics, or the cows, antibiotics they were giving them. So if you're going to look for meat, if you're sourcing meat, eggs, chicken, anything like that, fish, make sure, especially fish, it's wild caught. You don't want any farmed fish. The meat, you want pasture raised. We want them eating grass. We want them eating dirt. We want them getting all those good nutrients into their body. And so then, yes, if you have raw cow milk from a cow like that, it's okay. Again, we're not that hip on dairy. It is very inflammatory, and we just prefer you take it out altogether for the most part. You know, I like to say 80-90% is enough. I do like a slice of cheese on my whole grain toast every once in a while, you know, a couple times a week. It's, you know, it's just what I like. I love my cheese, but I don't eat it that often. But if you're drinking milk, we really recommend you swap it out with just plain old water. Really bad for you to have just, you know, cup after cup of milk. And we are feeding this to our kids. they have actually determined that girls, when I was growing up, the average age was 13 on starting their periods. Now it's down to 9. And that's because of the milk and the chemicals that they're putting inside the cow, the hormones that they're giving the cows are making women and girls have their periods much sooner. So we know it's affecting us at a high level. So, and someone else, Susan, asked soy milk. And I'm going to go back to, on everything, when it comes to products, you want to get the best quality. And so if you're looking at soy milk, you want to get organic soy milk, look at the ingredients, make sure you can pronounce everything that's in it. You want to get very pure, because if you get like those silk, it's just filled with junk. And you don't want that in your body. So be sure to look at the ingredients. Organic is always best. And you want to make sure that it's very simple ingredients when you're buying this stuff. Do you guys have anything to add on the soy milk?
I would only add that if you're completely healthy, then all of these general answers that we're giving you are great answers. If you have specific issues, then there's always nuances that we want to learn from your story, your symptoms, so that we can individualize the diet for you. So that answer from Julie about soy milk was exactly right. You want the highest quality you can find, but there are certain conditions where soy milk is not the best choice. And so that's where an individual one-on-one coach can help you, because then we know your story. We're not just giving a general answer to a whole group of people. Then we're saying, okay, but you have this particular problem, so a better choice for you would be this alternative. So it's always good to have a personalized connection with somebody who can answer your specific questions based on your health, not just based on general knowledge.
Perfect.
Absolutely. So we have any thoughts, Mark asked, any thoughts on detoxification when people do detoxes? Right? Who wants to jump in on this one?
Are we talking like food detoxes?
I would say yes. You know, when people do detoxes and they'll do a juice detox, or they'll do anything, you know, and maybe it's just I'm going to assume it's not a full fast, like a full 5-day fast, which we do encourage once or twice a year for most people. Again, going back to what Carol says, this is general based knowledge. Very specific instances, it may not be good for them. But on detoxing, when people say, oh, they're doing a detox, right? That means they're doing some kind of juice, something or other. It means that they're doing some kind of, you know, grapefruit diet, or I mean, I've heard it all. But what do you guys think about doing a detox, like a 5 or 10-day detox?
Again, I think we need to know the background story of your health. I think there are many, many, many things that we can do in our everyday lives to minimize our toxic load, to eliminate everyday toxins in our environment. The biggest influence of toxins in our body comes from what we stick in our mouth. So clean food, clean air, and clean water is the best place to start. And then you can upgrade all of your personal care products, your household cleaning products. All of that is the foundation of starting to detox, right? If you have a very toxic exposure in your life and then you go on a detox, depending on what that detox is, you can actually get very sick. Some detoxes are very gentle. Some detoxes are very strong, and you can make yourself worse by dumping all those toxins into your system very, very rapidly. So always, if you're going to do a detox, you want to be supervised by a health professional. And I would recommend starting with the basics first. Lower your toxic load. See if you feel better just doing that. Maybe find out what your genetics are. Are your genetic pathways detoxing properly? Will supplements help that work more efficiently? So detoxing is kind of like the most extreme approach to toxins in your body.
Yeah, and I do want to touch on that, because when we work with clients, a lot of times we'll do, in our programs, we will do functional DNA testing. And I got this from Carol in our last Ask Me Anything, which is your genetics play a role to the extent that they load the gun, but it's your environment and your lifestyle that are going to pull the trigger. And so for me, for instance, genetically, I don't process toxins very well. It doesn't mean I'm not processing toxins. It just means if I am eating a bunch of junk processed foods, if I have a very low diverse gut biome, if I am doing a lot of bad habits, drinking too much, smoking, whatever it is, not exercising, sitting in front of the couch all day, well, then I'm going to be setting myself up for failure and getting disease. But if I really take care of my health and I do all the 10 pillars of brain health and I do everything we teach people and help people to accomplish in their daily lives on keeping and staying healthy and getting to optimal health, then I'm never going to pull that trigger and my body's going to process toxins just fine. Now, I don't want to put additional toxic load on my body purposefully, but it is good to have that information. I know I got to be extra careful. Right. So I look at the toxins in my environment, and sleeping on a pillow full of plastic every night, not great. Right. Sleeping on a mattress full of plastic, not great. Like, these are all things that I do pay attention to because I know that my body can't handle toxins very well. It also doesn't handle inflammation very well genetically. So again, if this is stuff you want to find out for yourself, click on that link I put up there, book yourself a call, and we can definitely work with you in finding out this information for yourself. But I want to get to another question. So it is important to know your genetics. Mm-hmm. So how about, back to dairy, the fermented food like kefir, yogurt, and goat milk kefir. And this goes back to have a diverse gut biome. You do want to have fermented foods. If you want to get away from, and this is, they just came out with this study. So you want to have fermented foods in your diet. That absolutely helps with a diverse gut microbiome. Now, you want to be very careful. You don't want to just start drinking, 16 kombuchas a day. Kombucha. Nikki another one of our coaches always tells me I mispronounce that wrong. Kombucha. You don't want to, just start guzzling this stuff. That could really have an adverse effect. But to start to add in fermented food, honestly, kefir is fine. I would prefer you do, for the most part, things like sauerkraut, real fermented sauerkraut, or kombucha, things like that. Again, you're kind of looking at the dairy. But if you're going to put kefir into a smoothie or something once a day, you're probably going to be fine, depending on your other health circumstances and what else is going on with you. You guys have anything to add on the fermented yogurt or kefir, anything like that?
I agree. The best way to build your microbiome is with food. And so kefir, fermented dairy, those are food-based probiotic sources. Sauerkraut's even better because now you're getting the fiber from the cabbage. You can get fermented vegetables. You can get pickles that are fermented properly. So the more food including in that probiotic mix, that's not just you're drinking a gulp of probiotics, is the better way to go. You want to have all the other things that come with the food, the fiber, so that you're actually feeding those organisms. So that's what the prebiotics are. And so you're not just having the organisms, now you're feeding them the food that they can live on and stay in your system longer. So food first, probiotic drinks second, probiotic supplements third.
Mm-hmm.
They all build your microbiome.
Real quick in there too. As important as it is to put the good bacteria in, we also have to good focus on getting the bad bacteria out. And so, think of like a flooded basement. If you're down there with a sand bucket and scooper and you're trying to get the water as it's continuing to fill, yes, you're getting rid of the solution, but it's still filling up and it's still causing the issue. And so part of that issue, what that would look like is any kind of high sugar, high carb, refined diet with preservatives, pesticides, ingredients that you cannot pronounce, anything with a number in it is probably something that shouldn't be going into your body, because that can undo all of this really hard work that you're trying to implement. So getting a really good foundational diet, which we can certainly work with you individually on and what that looks like for you. Because again, there's general recommendations, but what's good for one person is not good for another. We can really help you to build that foundation so that you know that you're actually putting your money where it's worth as far as probiotics go, right?
Absolutely. So I'm going to take we have about 8 minutes left, and this is a topic that I think we can speak on for about 45 minutes. a question from Jenny. But before I get to it, I do want to I did put the link in there. If you guys have more specific questions, want to get help from us, this is what we do. Both Kelsey and Carol are two of my certified memory and cognition health coaches. We help you to get optimal health, to help stave off dementia and Alzheimer's, but get your optimal health today so that you feel your best that you can today and every day until the day you die. Mm-hmm. So this is how we work with people. We do testing. We do functional DNA testing. We put everybody on the continuous glucose monitor. If you want to know what's going on in your body, click that link I put in there, book a call, and we'll help to assess where you are and figure out where to send you next. All right. So let's talk about our views on grains and gluten. We can go on forever on this topic. And it is very controversial. I eat some grains and gluten. I have my body, again, genetically, I have no problem with gluten. I can eat gluten. I don't eat a lot of it because typically it's in your breads and your whole grain, your grains. And a lot of that can be inflammatory, but that's my genetics. I'm typically okay with gluten. So I don't pay too much attention to it. Having said that, I'm not eating 50 pounds of bread a day, right? Every other day, I'll maybe have a slice of toast. So that's where we're at. Sometimes I'll have some pizza. I do like my pizza every once in a while, once a month or something. But this is where 80% is enough, right? I don't purposely put it in my diet, but I'm not a person who is at this point in my life conscious about my gluten intake. Now, we can look at the flip side of that, right? Let's talk to Carol about gluten and her experience with it. If you want to share a little bit of your story, you certainly don't have to, but.
Oh, no, sure. So I don't eat gluten at all, and I don't eat any grains at all. But that is based on my genetics and my medical history. And I know that gluten and grains are triggers for what's happening in my body. Overall, gluten is one of the top inflammatory foods. So certainly if you're prone to inflammation in any way, if you're experiencing brain fog and you don't know why it could be driven by inflammation, then gluten is not that great of an idea. And we also know that gluten affects something in your gut called zonulin. So zonulin is kind of the gatekeeper on the lining of your small intestines that opens and closes to allow nutrients from your food to enter your bloodstream, but keeps everything else out, keeps out food particles, bacteria, viruses, parasites, everything, so that continues along and gets eliminated when you go to the bathroom. Gluten messes with the production of zonulin. So it's when you eat lots and lots of gluten, zonulin gets elevated and the gatekeeper opens the gates wide up, causing a condition called leaky gut. Now all of those bacteria, food particles can get into your bloodstream, and that triggers an immune response. That immune response becomes chronic inflammation, food sensitivities, can be symptoms anywhere in your body. And eventually, if you don't take care of that, and if you're genetically susceptible, that can lead to autoimmune disease, which is where I'm at. So when you have autoimmune disease, it started with the gluten that messed up the zonulin, that caused leaky gut, that created chronic inflammation, that eventually caused your body to attack itself. So again, very bio-individual approach to your story, your health, and what your coach can do specifically for you based on what's happening in your body.
Absolutely. Now, Carol, growing up, did you eat a lot of processed food?
Oh, tons. Yeah, I didn't know a thing. We went to McDonald's, total junk food. We were very poor, so we ate the cheapest of the cheapest of the cheap. So I ate terribly until I was 35. And when I was 35, I was diagnosed with cancer. And that was a big gut punch. And I had very little kids at the time. And I came into the whole holistic nutrition world through that cancer diagnosis. And then after that, I developed autoimmunity, probably because of the chemotherapy and because I'm genetically susceptible. So lots of different things triggered stuff happening in my life. And that has now shaped the diet that I eat that's best for me to keep my inflammation down, to heal my gut, to keep my microbiome balanced, so that I went to the gym this morning and did boot camp And I have autoimmune disease, and like most people with autoimmune disease are not living the life that I'm living. And it's because I do all the things that I do.
And last time we were together, you made a comment about that, about how people feel like they're missing out on food. They feel like they're sacrificing their life because they can't eat certain foods. And you had something really potent to say about that. And
I don't remember what I said at the time.
it was something around, I do this so that I can live the way I want.
Yes, I must have said, nothing tastes as good as being healthy feels.
Yes, exactly.
So that really is my mantra, and that's how I approach my life. And luckily, I love all food. So yes, when I look at somebody else's pizza, I'm like, ooh, I remember how good that tastes. But if I'm eating salmon and salad, I love that too. And as soon as I put that food in my mouth, I'm like, I love this meal. I don't need to be eating that. That will have consequences for me.
Nothing tastes as good as healthy feels. I love that. I love that. And that's something to remember as we wrap it up here. Kelsey, did you have anything you wanted to add when it comes to glucose and sugar, when it comes to gluten and grains?
Just a real quick last thought on gluten is, regardless of if you're somebody who is sensitive to the gluten molecule itself, we need to be conscientious of the quality of the gluten that we're eating. A lot of people feel that they are gluten intolerant when in reality what they are is glyphosate intolerant. And that's why a lot of people can tolerate gluten and so you can tolerate it in other countries like Europe, but you cannot tolerate it in the US. And it's because of how our wheat crops are treated in the US. Glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup, and it's actually sprayed on our wheat products to speed up the drying process because of the supply and the demand of wheat as a crop and a filler for a lot of our processed foods. And so anytime that you are eating a bread or anything that has some source of wheat or flour in it, always, like if you leave this with one thing today, like always organic gluten products, always organic wheat products, and animal-based products too, for that matter. But quality matters.
Quality matters a lot. And so that's one of the biggest pieces here that we can take away from this is that the wheat itself may not be so bad, but it's all the pesticides and junk that we're putting on it. Mm-hmm. And what they're finding is that soil, even organic farms, has some of that residue from runoff from other farms. So it really is because we're treating our food so poorly, and why we're seeing so many people with gluten sensitivities now when we didn't see it 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. Right. It's become rampant. And I remember even 15 years ago, I thought to I didn't even think it existed because it didn't exist growing up. Yeah. Right. Because we didn't have the poor quality food that we have today. So buy quality. If you guys want more help, again, click on that link right here. It says, yes, I want more information. You can book a call to talk to one of our memory assessors. They can then talk to you about what kind of programs we have, our retreats where we get really, really in depth with people. We have 2 this fall that we just lined up in Colorado, in the mountains in Colorado. And you can come, you can go really deep on your brain health there. Or in the meantime, you can work with one of our certified memory and cognition health coaches who will help you to learn what's going on inside your body, to fix your gut issues and help you to really get the better cognition, better memory. And in the long term, we're really looking to stave off dementia and Alzheimer's, help to stave off dementia and Alzheimer's. There's no guarantees, but there's a ton of science that everything that we do and teach reduces your risk dramatically of getting these terrible diseases and heart disease and strokes and all the things. So go ahead and click that, book your call, and we look forward to speaking to you guys soon. So thank you so much. Go have a great weekend. Happy Friday.